Thank you for getting us going, Brandon. I appreciate it. And thank you also for all of you students that are attending in here from all across the country and across the world. I saw some. My name is David Bethel, and I am currently a corporate university relations recruiter at CVS Health. I was an intern in the 2020 class and then came on full-time just last summer into my current role. Today, we are going to look over some information regarding CVS Health as a company, meet some of our employees, our great panelists, and talk about potential opportunities as well. And so with that being said, let's get started. So CVS Health, we are a healthcare innovation company with a simple and clear purpose, bringing our heart to every moment of your health. And how do we do that? Well, one way is through integrated value. We are creating unmatched products for today's healthcare consumers. Our integrated solutions are helping to lower costs and improve outcomes. We also use innovation. We have long been an industry leader with innovations that close gaps in care, drive greater adherence, and address the unmet patient needs. Another way is through our digital services. Today's savvy healthcare consumers demand more flexibility in their interactions with providers. So virtual care can offer a convenient and lower cost alternative for them. As you can see here on the screen, CVS Health currently has over 300,000 colleagues who all rally around bringing our heart to every moment of your health. We have close to 10,000 retail locations, and that actually means that about 70% of Americans live within a 5-mile radius of a CVS store. We are also a Fortune 4 company, and that means we generate over $80 billion in annual revenue with a net income of $2.9 billion. So who are our customers? Well, Caremark and Aetna serve over 100 million members yearly, and nearly 5 million customers walk into our retail store locations daily. In addition to that, we have a division for prescription benefit management division, Medicare, and Medicaid management. And our retail pharmacy fills over 1.5 billion prescriptions annually. Although you may know CVS Health as a retail pharmacy, we really are much, much more than that. Starting with CVS Caremark. Caremark is our pharmacy benefit management organization, one of the largest in the world, and they take pride in making sure you have access to affordable medication and convenient options for filling. This includes things such as mail order pharmacy, specialty pharmacy, or through our network of 68,000 pharmacies, both CVS and non-CVS. Moving on to Minute Clinic. Minute Clinic locations are staffed by practitioners who specialize in family health care. We are open every day with no appointment needed for things like minor illnesses or injuries, screening and monitoring, skin conditions, travel health, vaccinations. As you may know from the pandemic, you likely yourself or had family members who went to Minute Clinics, and also wellness and physicals, as well as women's services. Omnicare is a pharmacy services provider for long-term care, as well as assisted living or senior living communities. Kidney care supports people with chronic kidney disease and those who are at high risk before they may require dialysis. Health hubs offer expanded health services, including in-store and telehealth visits, pharmacy support, care for chronic conditions, as well as common illnesses, thousands of wellness products, wellness rooms in many locations, and they tend to have physicians and nurse practitioners who are on site. As for Aetna, there are 39 million people who actually rely on Aetna's health insurance plans to help them make decisions about their healthcare and their healthcare spending. Every day, we work to make the system easier and more convenient for those customers with medical, pharmacy, and dental plans, as well as Medicare and Medicaid services, behavioral health programs, and medical management. And finally, to wrap up all of the different areas of CVS Health, we have a quadrant which focuses on nurse care management. So I hope that gave a good high-level summary of what we're all about here at CVS Health. And now I'm excited to introduce you to our panel. And if we can go through, starting at Hannah here, and say your name and what school you're from, your position, how long you've been in that position, and the geographic work location that you're coming in from.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hannah Faisal here. So I went to Kennesaw State University in Kennesaw, Georgia. I currently work as a business analyst on the Medicare SSI team. I've been in that role for a little bit over a month now. And like I said, I'm from Georgia.
All right, I guess I'm next. Hey everyone, my name is Sam Ferguson. I am a graduate of Ball State University located in Muncie, Indiana. I'm currently in our IT leadership development program. I just hit my 1 year mark, and I'm on our enterprise information security track. So all things cybersecurity is where I hit from. But I also, for those of you who are interested in the internship opportunities, I was a summer intern previously at CVS in the summer of 2020. And I am currently working out of beautiful Hartford, Connecticut.
Thank you, Sam. My name is Bhavani Subramanian. I graduated from Arizona State University in Tempe, Arizona. I'm an IT leadership development program participant as well, working as a business analyst in the healthcare business data warehouse at the moment. I've been in this role for about 2 months, but just like Sam, I was an intern and then I was a co-op right after that during my senior year of college. So I've been with the company for a little bit at the moment.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And with that all being said, I'm happy to kick off our questions here for today's panel. And we're actually starting back with Hannah again. So we just want to know a little bit about what the company is like and what is your team culture like?
Yeah, so in terms of team culture, I've been on the team for a little bit over a month, but it's been a great experience for me so far, simply because of how supportive and welcoming the team is. And I think that is something that you can see throughout CVS and working here. I feel like in the past, I was an ITLDP, and in all of my teams, I felt so supported and so welcomed. I was able to ask questions when I needed to, and it wasn't just on a peer level. I could reach out to leadership and ask questions that I had as well, which I think is so important, especially when you're early in career and just like starting out your career from college and getting into a company as large as CVS. You kind of don't expect that going in. So that's a little bit more about like the team and company culture here. Is awesome.
Thank you, Hannah. And yeah, I would have to agree with that. I know CVS Health coming on was my first ever corporate or office type of job. And I remember being really terrified until my first day and realizing everybody's so happy to help you with your questions, and nobody ever expects you to know everything, which is super comforting as an intern. Starting next with Sam and then going to Bhavani, how have you adapted to working virtually? I know a lot of us, both students and employees, have gone to virtual work. How have you guys done it?
Yeah, so going virtual was really interesting. I thankfully had some internship opportunities before, so I got to experience what that in-person office aspect was like, and getting to my internship, get to know your fellow interns and things along those lines. And with the ITLDP program, you've got a bunch of other people who are also at your age, at the same stage in your career, so you want to build those relationships. So virtually, I think the biggest thing for me has always been trying to keep up just with more set one-on-one times throughout the time. So normally you would have those water cooler conversations, or just as you're working on stuff, just talking with people back and forth in the office, but you don't really have that. So you just got to make sure you set aside time to talk and network with your fellow coworkers and get to know them better. I think as well for virtual, definitely having a really solid work environment that you're really happy and comfortable working out of. I know for me, I actually ended up moving here in preparation for the position, but we've still been virtual since then. And so, having, a space, I have a really a decently nice apartment with, tall ceiling and nice windows, and like a really environment that's, conducive for me, feeling not like I'm stuck in a shoebox all day, or, somewhere that I feel happy to work out of. So I think for me, the biggest things was just, setting up an environment where you feel comfortable to work from, but also, when you get on that job, setting aside that time to meet with people in your team, to meet with people in your internship, in your ITLDP program, and just get to know them better and continue building those connections, so you're not just feel like you're kind of disconnected from everyone else.
So I actually had a very different experience from Sam, and that's because I have been remote so far my entire internship, tech co-op, and ITLDP position. I just graduated this May 2022. So about 2.5 years of my college experience was actually online, much like a lot of you guys who are in the audience. And so I think that I personally did not have as much trouble shifting just because I had that period of transition during college when shifting to remote learning. So the transition was very, very similar. It wasn't as challenging transitioning from in-person learning to remote learning as it was transitioning from really remote learning to a remote workplace. I think the only difference is in school, you have a schedule that is dictated by your classes, your office hours, your clubs and extracurriculars. The only difference is here now your schedule is dictated by the team that you're working with and also the meetings that you have scheduled. I think that as long as you have a robust time management schedule at this point in time, and you also know how to effectively advocate for your own personal time to be able to accomplish your own work, I think that you'll be absolutely fine. I think that you already have the skills from remote learning that you can really easily apply to that remote workplace.
Yeah, that's great. And honestly, I also relate to Bhavani. I came in completely remote from the beginning. And so it was a little bit different, but definitely resonate with some of those things that both of you said. And actually going back a step, we got a question in the chat for Hannah. And the question is, Hannah, did you start your career as a business analyst or did you move there from a data analyst position? And she has said, I am an enterprise analytics intern now and want to make the move to business analyst, to give some context.
So I started as part of the ITLDP, and then my landing position, which is the one I'm in right now, is where I'm a business analyst. So I wasn't in data analytics at all before.
Awesome. Thank you. And moving on to our next question, I'm actually going to go back to Bhavani. So what is the best aspect of work culture at CVS in your opinion?
I think there are two aspects that could really be used to answer this question. I can't identify which is better of the two. I think the one thing is we acknowledge that this is a healthcare company, and in comparison to other workplace environments that I've belonged to, this company really does emphasize your physical and mental health. There have been so many instances over this last year that I have received support from my manager and my mentors when I have, let's say, had to skip a meeting to go to a doctor's appointment. I know that I had a training once that I had a kidney infection during, and the training, the instructors of that training were incredibly accommodating for me, even though it was an all-camera training where I had to be on camera the entire time. They were very accommodating, understanding where I was coming from. And that's just one example of how CVS really cares about its employees' physical and mental health. CVS really runs on their employees, as does every other company, and they do a really great job ensuring that their employees are well enough and are happy enough to be able to contribute to that company and eventually contribute to that end goal of bettering human health. The other thing I would say is that the networking opportunities here are quite unparalleled. So from my experiences, I've never had, it's been an open door policy. I've never had any sort of barriers to reaching out to really anyone within the organization and being able to connect with them. I know that during my internship, I actually had the opportunity to present one of my projects to the vice president of our organization. And so that's just an illustration of just how open people are to meeting with you, interacting with you, and helping further your career, regardless of whether they know you or not. And I know that I wouldn't be here in this position today without the incredible resources that I've relied upon to get me here.
No, that's great, both of those. And I will also say I was so surprised when I came to CVS Health with the mental health awareness. That was something that I thought I had really only seen on college campuses, and to see it in a major corporation was really shocking, and it's really impressive. Going on to our next question. This one's going to be for Sam. What has been your biggest surprise about working for CVS Health?
Good question. Biggest surprise, I think definitely how open people are to helping you out, especially someone who's really early in career. It can be very daunting coming into a lot of these fields, and particularly for me in cybersecurity. If any of you are in cybersecurity or studying cybersecurity, especially if you had any sort of internship experience, you probably know how vast this field is with so many niches, specialties. There's a million different directions you could go in terms of learning. So a lot of the time when I'm going through and rotating through different teams in the program, I'm quite new to a lot of the stuff that they're working with, a lot of the tools, a lot of the techniques, and things along those lines. But every single time, everyone's always been, how can we help you? What do you want to learn? Do you want to just shadow and like see what I'm doing? And no one's ever been like, oh no, this new person, I'm really busy right now. I don't have the time to, help you out. They're always there to bring you in and bring things that can be great learning opportunities for you, even if they're the more mundane things for them of their day-to-day job. So I think that is and especially again as an early in career professional, that's so important to get into an environment that is not only good for you in terms of the content that you get exposed to, but in how that's presented to you and how people bring you in and can teach you about the skills that they've gained over the years and the skills particular to that company. I think it's just one of the most incredible things that you just don't really you don't necessarily see at every single company. So it was a good surprise to come across at CVS for sure.
Yeah, and we actually have a follow-up question to that, Sam. Somebody was wondering how you got into cybersecurity. Was that something that was just a part of a rotation that got you going, or was that an interest from the beginning that you wanted to be
Yeah.
a part of?
So I got into IT because of cybersecurity and because that was kind of my first exposure to it, and that's why I was interested in it. As far as kind of getting the opportunities at CVS Health, I think the ITLDP program is definitely one of the better ways for early in career professionals, people who definitely don't have a ton of experience, but showing that passion and that interest for security is really been helpful to me. A lot of the internship experiences that I've gained, a lot of things that I did outside of school and my studying on my own, particularly in the areas of offensive security. Those have really just helped me to kind of solidify like, hey, I not only, am interested in security, I've done work, whether it be on my own or through a professional setting, and here's why I'd be a great fit. So I think those are the biggest things. Of course, some people who may be graduating soon, maybe you haven't had the best of luck with internship opportunities, doing those personal things and kind of just doing your own research, making little write-ups or something that can help, show your passion for it is a really great way. But especially if you have the internship experience as well, that's a really good way to kind of show that you would be a good fit for the security space in the organization.
Wonderful. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And going to our next question, we're going to go back to Hannah. What skill set have you gained here at CVS that you didn't expect to gain?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say just improving my problem solving skills in general. I mean, in college, you do a lot of problem solving. I majored in IT, so I did a lot of programming classes and those types of things. But being able to implement that in real world issues that the company's having or the teams that I'm on are trying to solve has been really, really awesome for me. Just getting opportunities to deal with like process improvement initiatives and those types of things. For example, with my last rotation, we were trying to figure out the best way to improve our capability refinement initiative. And pretty much this is how we get IT intake from our business and development teams and trying to figure out the best way to kind of organize the work and prioritize and those types of things. And I worked a lot in QuickBase, but pretty much built up a system that really helped in kind of like organizing all of the issues that the team were trying to overcome and kind of like getting input from my manager around how we can prioritize and talking to the business and communicating with everyone just to make sure that everyone was okay with like the system that I built out and that type of thing was really, really just awesome experience for me overall, because I didn't really expect to kind of apply what I was doing in college or just a lot of problem solving pieces. I didn't expect to have to do that, and being able to like lead a project that really helped and I could see how it impacted our team was just a great experience for me overall.
Oh, that's great. And certainly problem solving is an incredible skill to have and one to keep fresh coming out of school. I think sometimes it's really hard to keep yourself challenged in those types of ways once you leave class. So that's great. So switching gears again really quick back to Sam. What's a day in the life like for you? And maybe talk a little bit about your experience in the IT LDP.
Yeah, for sure. I think right now, so as kind of has been alluded, I'm not sure it's been super clear, but ITLDP is rotational, so we kind of move around every once in a while. I'm still getting into my current rotation, so I don't have a proper schedule. But I'll talk about when I worked on our orchestration and content engineering team as a detection specialist. So basically, my day would start out. We would have we worked closely with our security operations center who responds to any sort of security alerts that we have, and a lot of times there are alerts that aren't perfect, that have issues. There's false positive that's being picked up. There's something that isn't being picked up. So we would get requests come in and say, hey, can you work on this? So my day starts off, I get in, kind of check that request queue and start going through and optimizing our alerts. So that involves a lot of taking a look at what does this alert do? What are we missing? And running some tests with regex and things like that, and just using my general security knowledge as well to make good decisions on how can we build out these alerts to be better. Later on in the day, I might also be working on building out new detections. We always have new opportunities for detections for any of my security specialists out there. You guys probably all know about Log4j. That happened at the end of last year. I was on the team when that happened. So having to build out those detections and optimize them really rapidly was a great experience, and something that maybe not as rapid, but something that we work on from the day to day as new issues come up of, hey, we're not detecting this kind of thing. So that's kind of, and again, like I said, the program rotates, so every team is going to be a different experience with what you're working on, but just being involved in that team is very common. As far as ITLDP work goes, we have these different committees that people can be a part of: learning development, our networking committee, and then what I'm on, which is talent acquisition. So we're heavily involved in the process of recruiting, interviewing and hiring on new people to the IT leadership development program. So I work as a lead for that committee. So I'm in charge of helping organize meetings that we have to get updates on the status of how the interview process is going, how the hiring process is going, looking at ways that we could optimize, updating our manager on the status of here's where we're at in the process, and all those kinds of things. So we get to be really involved in end-to-end hiring process, which is a really unique experience and something in a normal IT role you wouldn't really get anywhere else, because typically, especially as an individual contributor, you're not necessarily involved in those processes. So yeah, I guess that's a pretty good summary of kind of what day to day would look like in the ITLDP for security.
No, that's great. And I mean, just from that, you can see how many different areas of the business you end up touching through your different work, which is incredibly impressive, and certainly a trend across everybody in ITLDP as well. Now switching to Bhavani, the question is, how did you prepare for your current role?
So I prepared for my current role primarily by doing my thesis. I know that this isn't necessarily an option that all college students have or can take advantage of. I think most college students have to do a capstone, very similar in a lot of capacities. I think really investing yourself in that capstone, your thesis, will be the best way for you to prepare yourself for a working environment, and that you have ownership over a project, and you really see that baby grow from start to end over an entire year. When you go into industry, you're not going to have that same level of ownership over a project unless they are much smaller scale projects, I would say. But your projects in the workspace are much longer in duration in comparison to the projects that you would do for a class, a semester long project, or even really your thesis, which is about a year long. And so the way that I prepared for mine was I actually developed a website in conjunction with two different doctors. And I learned HTML, CSS, JavaScript myself. And I also learned a lot about knowledge representation, about medical decision making, et cetera, because I was a biomedical informatics major, and those were the core components of what my interests were, of what my major would lend to, and also where I would envision myself in industry now and a couple years in the future. So I think it's not about what languages you learn. It's not about what hard skills you really develop. It's about getting those generic skills like problem solving. So my thesis taught me ownership of a project. It taught me how to manage my time properly so that I would be able to deliver this product, this functional product, by a certain point in time. It taught me, it definitely taught me problem solving, in that I had to learn this new technology, these new languages on my own, to solve a problem that I had never once had exposure to, and neither had my mentors. And it taught me how to be enterprising, because I had to really develop my own methodology. I did have support from my mentors, but at the end of the day, it's your project. You're the one who is most dedicated to it. And so I think those skills definitely translate into the workplace, where although you won't have that same level of ownership, you will have ownership over some aspect of a project. And it's important that you know how to allocate your time in order to successfully accomplish that project. You might not necessarily develop a methodology for how to accomplish that, but there will be projects where you will have to define how you're going to achieve an end goal. There are some projects where that's given to you. There are some projects where you have to develop that for yourself. And yeah, being enterprising in that, utilizing all of your resources, seeing what's there to help you in that quest to successfully delivering a project on time.
For me as well, I think, you know, if you already know you have an interest in a specialization and you want to try to get into that, definitely put some time into that and build up those hard skills in that area. For me, I was really interested in offensive security and I wanted to get involved in that more. And, you know, especially in the security field, that's something you really need a decent amount of experience in. So I dedicated a good amount of time during my senior year of school to learning those skills to get in that. And like I said, you know, with the ITLDP, those particular hard skills are not necessarily what people are primarily looking for you to get into the program. But once you're in and you're going around and seeing what teams you want to join and who you want to work with, teams are going to be very interested in you if you got a particular skill set, and you might be able to get, you know, a bit more interesting projects to work on, because you don't have to, you know, learn those foundational aspects of that specialty or that niche, because you've already got it and you can dive into some more interesting stuff and really build it up throughout your time. So again, but what Bhavani said is absolutely correct. Everything 100% agree. But if you are someone who already know what your specialty or niche, or you got a pretty good idea of where you want to fit in, definitely put some time, build those hard skills for that. And then when you jump in, find that team who works on that stuff and get to know them and get in with them, and you can start working and use those skills right off the bat. Sorry, David, just had to jump in there.
Oh, no, thank you for adding that. Two great perspectives. Definitely project management is always going to be huge. The time management, brilliant things to
If
have.
I
And
could add to what Sam said, I know that Sam mentioned projects. You can be part of these really cool projects. That's an opportunity. I haven't had the opportunity to be on projects that are very aligned with what my interests are, which is clinical informatics and really clinical decision support. But I do have cool opportunities, cool side projects that I get to be part of, that I get to define for myself. I get to attend conferences to increase my knowledge in this particular area. Maybe it's not going to help me in my current role, but that doesn't mean that I can't use these learning opportunities. I can't take advantage of learning opportunities that present themselves for me to build a path towards my next rotation, or maybe even my landing spot, or my next role after that. You know, it's all about figuring out what your interests are. That's something that the ITLDP does very well. Figuring out what your interests in a variety of ways to meet that eventual career end goal.
yeah, definitely. I think the leadership development programs definitely give such a great opportunity to get an idea of what you want and kind of touch on a lot of different areas. And when, like what Sam said, when you get there, you can start to really hone in on some of those specific skill sets that, you know, you realize you're passionate about, or where you want to take your career. Like what Bhavani said, might not be this rotation, it might be the next rotation, or it might be the job after those rotations are done. So definitely some great feedback from both of you there. Really appreciated that. And next, we're actually going to go to Hannah for a question. What from your internship experience helped you most for your current role?
It's a good question. So I did an intern with CVS, but it was interesting for me because I ended up doing a software engineering internship with a smaller healthcare company. And I knew for a fact that I wasn't really interested, or I didn't really like it based off of school, like programming and that type of thing. But I think for me, it was just really interesting for me to kind of like take one more stab at it to figure out whether this is something that I want to do or I don't want to do. And I figured out at the end of it that I didn't want to do this long term, or I didn't really care for coding. But I think it's so important for you to learn a little bit more about what you want and what you don't want to do, because it's so important for you in your career to figure things out. You'll find yourself doing things that you don't like, but at least being willing to kind of like do it regardless of whether you like it or not, I think is very important to have. You have to be adaptable. You have to be willing to like try different things, go out of your comfort zone. And so I think that's one of the main things that really stuck out to me from my internship experience.
Definitely true. I think sometimes too, you'll even find out when you're doing things you don't like that over time, as you're more comfortable with it, it becomes something you do like, which is always a really weird feeling. So definitely understand that. Now switching back to Sam, we're going to go with, what have you found was your biggest challenge in your role so far?
Ooh, good question. Biggest challenge in my role so far. I think definitely handling, getting a good balance between the tasks with ITLDP and with my rotational tasks. So a lot of the times, you want to be working primarily on your rotation stuff, typically, for a lot of people, because, that's the area you're passionate about. I'm working on the cybersecurity stuff. I love cybersecurity. I want to keep working on it. But you do have these ITLDP things that you have to work on as well. And with talent acquisition, something I actually still enjoy as well. But, those can be, very, they can vary quite often. Sometimes you don't have as much in terms of your rotational work. And sometimes you have, more in the ITLDP space with talent acquisition for me, and sometimes it's the other way around, and sometimes both of them you have a ton of stuff to do, and sometimes both of them you have not a whole lot to do. So I think definitely a big challenge is trying to be consistently adaptable, because you can try and have a set schedule of how you work things on like a baseline, but that is not always going to be the case. If you got like if David decided that they wanted to make university relations put a big push on your hiring rec for ITLDP, and you get like 25 hire views coming in 1 week, you got a lot of stuff to work on for ITLDP. And then also you have a major security vulnerability and you've got to build a bunch of detections out. It can be a lot at one time. So it's really about managing that time as well as you can, being adaptable as the responsibilities change. Some roles are a bit more consistent, some ebb and flow a lot more in what they need. So you really just got to be adaptable, have that baseline time management schedule that you've got, but then be able to adjust on the fly as things change. That's definitely a big challenge that I'm still even working through myself, but I'm slowly but surely getting better at it.
That's great. Yes, adaptability, definitely a trend across a lot of these answers, a very important skill to have. And now switching over to Hannah, I'm actually very interested to hear this answer. What is the best career advice that you've ever received?
Okay, that's a good one. So I remember having a conversation with one of the leaders in Medicare, and one of the things that she said that really stuck out to me was, if you're not uncomfortable, then you're not growing. And I think that is still very important, which is why throughout my time in the ITLEP, I made it a point to like try different things, to the point where I pretty much tried almost all of the tracks in the program. I did like an EIS rotation, which is security. I did something on the business side. I did something in HCB healthcare benefits IT. So I pretty much tried a little bit of everything, and making sure that I was getting myself uncomfortable to where I can grow and kind of hone in and learn skills outside of what I would have expected myself to do in the first place. So in that, I would say I really enjoyed each of my rotations, and I could pick out like certain things from each one that I really liked. But I think it's so important for you to be adaptable as well. In terms of like going through like different areas or just trying different things, I think also being like a lifelong learner is very important as well. So it kind of all ties in together. You have to be a lifelong learner if you're striving to try different things and being uncomfortable and growing essentially.
Yes, definitely. Being a lifelong learner is huge. I think it changes the outlook on like everyday work you have and how you approach it. Definitely true. This one is going to be for Bhavani. What is one tip you'd like to share about the transition from student to professional?
I think this is going to be a little atypical from what you hear from others, but I think one of the One of the things that really changes between being a student and a professional is the actual concept of a work-life balance. I know that in college, I stretched myself super thin over a variety of classes that I was taking, extracurriculars that I was responsible for, and the jobs that I was working. And so I felt like it was very hard for me to catch a breather. And I didn't have as much opportunity to learn who I was as a person and discover my own interests outside of my commitments and outside of my classes, really. Um, and I know that as a professional, one of the very interesting things to me is, well, your job is not always going to be 9 to 5. There's no such thing as a 9 to 5 job, is what I've heard. You do have the opportunity to have a work-life balance in a way that you haven't been able to have, at least for the last 4 years as a college student, maybe even 8 years as a high school student as well. You're able to log off, as long as you're able to efficiently work towards your deadline and meet your deliverables, you are able to log off at 5 p.m. For me, because I'm in Arizona, at 2 p.m. You're able to log off right after work and you're able to pursue your own interests. So I think that finding out what makes you whole, what balances you so that you are a happy person and you're able to be a go-getter at work. I think that that's one of the most important things that you hone in on in your transition from being a student to a professional. I know that for me, I exercise a lot more than I was able to, and that really grounds me. I really enjoy doing that. And I do that every day almost after work. You're going to have to find something that you enjoy doing yourself and do that after work every single day or however regularly so that you're able to come back to work with the motivation to accomplish your work goals as well.
Yeah, definitely a very important thing that we haven't really talked about a lot, the work-life balance. And definitely can understand in college, you leave, a place of work and you still have homework or you still could be studying, and there's all those types of things. And with work, finding something to, this is when I'm going to log off, this is what I'm going to do. It makes you so much stronger when you go back to that again. So really appreciate that answer. Also, we had a few questions in the chat, and I'm going to toss these up for the group. One of them was, and I'll go actually one by one if we want to start with Bhavani, do Sam, and then Hannah. Somebody had asked, what technical skills would you suggest learning? Doesn't have to be long answer, but just like to hear from your three perspectives, what technical skills are important.
Sure, I can definitely start. As Sam mentioned, the ITLDP program is a rotational program. And so there's no definitive set of technical skills that you need to develop in order to be considered for the program to get offered the position. As I mentioned, I did explore a variety of programming languages, both front end and back end, before I started this job. More so out of the requirements of my major than necessarily in preparation for this particular job. But I think having exposure to some level of coding would be very beneficial, especially if you would like to take a technical path. I know that something that my mom told me and some of my mentors have told me is if you aspire to have some sort of technical bend, technicality to your profession, it's best to get that technical exposure right now at the beginning of your career, then aspire to have it later on, because it's much easier to transition from that college environment where you've already learned some of these skills and then continue to hone those in the industry, rather than you forget that midway and you have to relearn those skills later on in industry. So I think that having exposure to one coding language at least, and I'm not talking SQL, I'm talking about like Java, C, C++, some sort of object-oriented programming language will really help you in terms of getting the coding mindset, getting the problem-solving analytical mindset that you need to be in. Other than that, I can't think of any necessarily technical skills, I mean, I think proficiency with Excel is always something that is beneficial, but I wouldn't necessarily call that technical. I just think that that's something that would benefit you in any position that you're in.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo Bhavani's point. I think everyone, regardless of what technical specialty, should have a little bit of coding experience in there. I think also everyone, regardless of technical specialty, should have some network knowledge. I'm talking about the technical network side of things. So for reference, my background is in computer technology, so a degree in system administration and network administration, things along those lines. Networking is huge, whether you're a programmer, whether you're a sysadmin, net admin, obviously, and then security as well. Definitely for my security folks, networking is very important. It's something that you should absolutely know. Coding, like Bhavani said. I'm trying to think of what else off the top of my head. I'm going to throw this in here as a technical skill because I think it really counts, but being able to write proficiently. I cannot stress enough how important writing skills are in IT, and I can talk specifically to security. It's so incredibly important to have competent writing skills to where you can write about a security incident to the most high level degree where it's going up to a CEO or something on the business end who has no idea about anything technical in the security space, to your CISO where you want a short executive summary that has some technical details that they can understand quickly, to a full-on deep dive technical analysis that goes to a subject matter expert in your team that they can read and answer all the nitpicky little questions that they might have. I again just cannot stress enough how important writing is from a technical perspective. So as you work on building up your skills, as you work on little projects, imagine yourself, you're working for your own company and you have to write to a CEO, you have to write to your CIO, if you're in security, your CISO, or then a subject matter expert on your team, and see how you're able to write and communicate effectively. Because again, there's so much, especially of my work in security, that is defined by how well can you write things out. So that's what I'll put for my technical skills, networking and writing, to add on to what Bhavani had.
To add on to that, I would say anything like data analytics, being analytical, being detail oriented, I think is really important. And to Sam's point about writing, I think in communicating in general, you should be able to communicate what's going on, what the work that you're doing, that type of thing, to somebody in leadership who's not privy to that, to like your manager who's aware of what you're doing.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I'm an HR person and I can tell that because a lot of the things you suggest don't make a lot of sense to me, but everybody else on this call definitely can pull stuff from this and it's very helpful. I'm also going to have one last question here before we move on to some of our jobs and opportunities. This can be for anybody or everyone, up to you guys, but somebody asked about starting your career in technology. How do you get that going when you don't have that kind of previous experience there?
So I can start off by answering this just because I had wanted to go to medical school for so long. I then was an ED scribe at the beginning of the pandemic. And things changed a little bit for me as I saw what the workplace environment changed to in healthcare. At that point, I pivoted from desiring a career in medicine to seeing myself more so in this technical space, more so in biomedical informatics in some capacity. And so how I did that was I started off by taking courses. So I got myself a Udemy account at that point in time. And I think I went on Code Academy, and here is where I caution you, just because Code Academy is not an accredited resource, whereas Udemy, Coursera, edX, all of those are actually, they're accredited to provide you some sort of certification. So I started to take classes and discover my interests, my technical interests through the classes that I took there. And then I decided to take some more classes that align with those interests in school, eventually building up to my thesis and then landing me this job here at CVS as an IT LDP. I think it's really about first exploring your interests. through coursework and then learning how to translate that into something that is tangible, either through your capstone, your thesis, or some other project that you undertake outside of school.
Yeah, I can add on to that as well. I think one thing that you can do personally, especially if you're more on the technical side, or even if you're not so much, maybe more on the project management, like that's kind of your interest. Definitely look into starting up just a blog where you just write about stuff. That was something that I did over the course of my senior year, and I would just post those on LinkedIn. Obviously, it was really helpful. I had connections with CVS at that point. I was already like accepted in the IT leadership development program. So people had seen my post, and one of our executive sponsors at the time for the security track, when I got to meet with her and kind of get an idea of, what would be a good fit for you to start off, because she had seen those posts, she went, "Hey, I know exactly where you should be. I have a great team that you should be on." And I got introduced to doing some really cool things on the offensive and defensive side because of that work. So I think having that kind of public portfolio, whether it be writing and even just simple things, which you might see as like very simple baseline, can still show that you have that interest to dive into it, especially if you can put a bit more intermediate advanced stuff interspersed there, even if you're just still learning about it. So I'll definitely do that. And especially I'll say for the cybersecurity folks here, cybersecurity, I think, is one of the best. IT in general has so much information out there that you can get for a very low cost or even free, and security especially is no exception to that. So there's tons of great free resources out there. I will say, if any of you are interested in security, there's a website called tryhackme.com. They've got a breadth of skills, not only on the offensive side, but on the defensive side as well, to really practice that technical level. There's a free option, there's a paid option that's monthly, there's a student discount for it as well. And I use that. I know internally that's been recommended training for some of our security professionals as well. So that's a great place to start. But yeah, just having that kind of public portfolio that you can show out there when it comes to application, and then internally, if you're in the security space, definitely check out that site that I mentioned, TryHackMe. It's a great place to start off.
All right. To add to that, if you were like me when you're graduating college and unsure of like what you wanted to do or you wanted to go, I would say networking, reaching out to people, learning about what they're doing day to day, kind of like figuring out a day in the life of their job and asking if they'll be willing for you to job shadow, I think is like very helpful as well. I did a lot of that, and I think that's really what helped me figure out kind of what I wanted to get into, what I wanted to do. I haven't fully figured it out yet, but I have grasped a good understanding of what I like and what I don't like. So I think that was very helpful for me.
Awesome. Thank you to all of you guys. So we're actually going to wrap up our panel discussion there. Thank you for all the panelists. Those are great insights that all of you shared with us. Really appreciate that. And now we're actually going to review some of the opportunities that we have available for you students. So CVS Health does offer a variety of opportunities. And what really makes our internship unique is that we have proven to be a top-ranked successful virtual program. We also focus on helping you to succeed in not just the role, but also as a person by offering development opportunities throughout that summer. You're also treated as a colleague working on real world work. So you're not just running and getting coffee for the rest of the team or anything like that. Your contribution actually contributes to the success of the company, and you're never just given busy work. Here you can see the breakdown of our internship and after college roles. And you'll see our internship program generally focuses on juniors or first year MBAs who are graduating between September of 2023 and August of 2024. And those opportunities span across over 25 different business areas. As for our after college roles, we generally are looking for seniors with graduation dates between May 2022 and August 2023. And this is for our after college roles, which we will review soon. There's a list here on this next page. So here you see a few of the business areas that we offer roles in, including digital, data science and analytics, and of course, information technology, which we just heard a lot about. And our roles will start getting posted later this month, and you can explore all of these open roles at jobs.cvshealth/students. Going back to the corporate internship experience to touch on it a little further, we are ultimately looking for innovators, problem solvers, leadership experience, and strong communicators. This year's program will be a 10-week summer experience starting on June 5th and completing on August 11th, and that's 2023. As we discussed earlier, this is an opportunity to work on real world projects, and you will also have the opportunity to have development workshops, mentorship and networking opportunities, interaction with senior leaders, and also community service activities. And sometimes most importantly, our corporate interns also have an increased likelihood to receive an offer for a future role at CVS Health. As for our after college opportunities, we offer many experiences that range between 1 to 6 years for their rotations. And this includes actuarial, data science, information technology, finance, general management, human resources, and underwriting. So what's next? Our next steps, well, don't forget to submit your resume via WayUp's resume drop, and we will be sharing our positions with you as they become available. We will also be sending a follow-up email with the resume drop, and as those roles are posted, we will be actively reaching out to you so you can apply and get that started. So I think we can wrap up there with our presentation. Just want to answer any quick questions we have. We have a little bit of time here, so if you have any quick questions, we're happy to answer those. We have one question here about Coursera, so I will pass that to our panel. What do you consider Coursera a great site? What are your thoughts with Coursera?
I mean, ultimately, I don't think it's about whether I think it's a great site. It's more so about whether employers recognize it as something legitimate. I might be wrong in that Coursera is accredited. I think the last time I read it was accredited, but I would go and do your own research on Google to make sure that that's true. I know for sure edX is accredited. But I think it's just great to explore through the courses, the course offerings that are there that you might not necessarily have time to do at school because of your course load. You have the opportunity to kind of stretch that with Coursera, Udemy, etc. Over a time period that works best.
Another question we have, and I can actually answer this one, and thank you, by the way, Bhavani. We do sponsor for some of our positions, actuarial, data science, and some of our computer engineering roles do sponsorship. And I believe that's all the questions we have here for today. So thank you all for coming. Thank you to our panelists. As I said before, we will be in touch in the near future when those roles are posted, and we look forward to this fall. Thank you, everyone.